today. I'm Aviva Vogelstein. I'm the Director of Legal Initiatives at the Brandeis Center, an independent, nonpartisan institution for public interest, advocacy, research, and education. Our mission is to advance the civil and human rights of the Jewish people and promote justice for all. In the course of my work as a civil rights lawyer, I've closely studied religiously motivated hate and bias incidents, with a particular focus on anti-Jewish incidents. Religiously motivated hate is undeniably on the rise in our country, and religiously motivated harassment is infiltrating our nation's schools. Some recently reported incidents help illustrate the problem. Last May, a Muslim student was assaulted at a New York City public school. The assailant spit on her and attempted to pull off her hijab. Last November, in Washington state, a 14-year-old Sikh boy wearing a turban was punched and knocked down by a classmate. Just 2 weeks ago, two members of a Jewish fraternity at a Maryland university were followed by suspects shouting, "F the Jews," and calling them an ethnic slur. The suspects then followed the victims and began punching one of the victims in the face. At the Brandeis Center, we've assisted students who've been physically assaulted, spit on, verbally harassed, and harassed on social media because of their actual or perceived Jewish identity. Significant data, as many panelists today have mentioned, demonstrate that the numbers of anti-religious hate incidents are high and potentially rising. It's also important to remember the likelihood that many incidents are not even reported. This problem in our schools has been almost entirely ignored until very recently. Until last month, the Department of Education's Office for Civil Rights did not collect data on religiously motivated harassment and bullying, although it amassed data on sex, race, color, national origin, and disability. The Brandeis Center has long encouraged data gathering on hate against religious minorities. We explained how it's a tremendously important first step to provide an accurate portrait of the problem and necessary to compel an effective governmental response. In 2016, under the leadership of then Assistant Secretary for Civil Rights, Catherine Lehman, the Department of Education announced that they would be expanding their mandatory civil rights data collection of America's public schools to include religious-based bullying. OCR's new report, just released, proved the importance of this collection. An alarming 10,848 incidents, 8% of the total incidents in 2015 through 2016, were harassment or bullying based on religion. Now that OCR is finally gathering this information, it has provided us with over 10,000 reasons to take action. It's unconscionable that this category of hate, averaging approximately 30 incidents per school day, 150 per school week, and 602 incidents per school month, has, up until now, been largely unaddressed. Our federal civil rights laws do not properly protect students from harassment based on religion. Harassment and bullying is likely to have lasting psychological and emotional effects on students. Bullying has been linked to many negative outcomes. Kids who are bullied can experience negative physical, school, and mental health issues, and kids who bully others can engage in violent and other risky behaviors into adulthood. The federal government needs to take action to better protect Muslim, Sikh, Jewish, and all students from religiously motivated harassment. Title VI of the Civil Rights Act of 1964, which prohibits discrimination on the basis of race, color, or national origin in federally assisted programs and activities, has a glaring omission. It does not prohibit harassment based on religion. The Department of Education has made incremental improvements. In a 2004 Dear Colleague letter, written by then Assistant Secretary for Civil Rights, Ken Marcus, who's currently the president of the Brandeis Center, OCR clarified that Title VI protected students from certain religious groups that also have ethnic or ancestral components, such as Judaism, Islam, or Sikhism. This guidance was largely unenforced for about 6 years, but in 2010, it was reaffirmed by both the Department of Justice and the Department of Education. Though this guidance is currently in effect, there are several concerns. As it's informal guidance, it may not endure through subsequent administrations. Further, OCR could achieve a clearer, more transparent understanding of what is permitted and what is not through providing more guidance. By properly defining what discrimination based on ethnicity or ancestry entails, OCR could more easily identify, address, and prevent such incidents from recurring. OCR should also discuss in guidance, as recommended by the Commission in 2011, the First Amendment implications of anti-bullying policies. The guidance should include that the Department's Title VI policies should not be construed in ways that will limit free speech. Moreover, OCR's policies do not protect students from harassment based on religion alone. They require an ethnic or ancestral component. By prohibiting discrimination based on ethnicity or ancestry, without also banning purely religious-based discrimination. Title VI extends greater protections to members of religious groups with shared ethnic or ancestral characteristics than to groups without. All students deserve the same protections. Congress must pass legislation to protect religious minorities from harassment. The new data on religious harassment reveals the extent of the problem. Now that OCR has taken this important first step, we urge OCR to use the new data for its intended purpose, to provide technical assistance where there are patterns of harassment, to assist with investigations in response to complaints, and to compel an effective governmental response. To do so, OCR must both disaggregate the data that has been collected and collect more data, particularly with regards to individual religions, type of harassment or bullying by religion, where the incidents are occurring, and the context behind each incident. This data could be useful for federal investigations and NGO research, but only if more details are added. To help curb religious harassment and bullying, we urge the Commission to make the following recommendations. Perhaps most importantly, Congress must act to prohibit religious harassment in federally assisted programs and activities. This could be achieved through amending existing legislation, such as Title VI of the Civil Rights Act or the Higher Education Opportunities Act, or alternatively, Congress could introduce new standalone legislation to protect students from harassment based on religion. For OCR should disaggregate existing data and collect additional data on what types of harassment and bullying are occurring by religion, where the incidents are occurring, and the nature and severity of each incident. OCR should also provide clarification and more definitions, and in lieu of time, we urgently need more data, better legislation, and strong enforcement. With over 10,000 incidents of religious hate in our public schools, the federal government must act. Religiously motivated hate is unacceptable and should be combated just as vigorously as all other forms of bigotry. I thank you very much for your time.
Thank you to each panelist, and I'll open it up to my fellow commissioners for questions. Commissioner Yaffe?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank all of you for your very powerful testimony. We had a lot of discussion earlier in the day about the need for better data collection, for greater participation in that data collection, and of course I'm not going to talk about any of that. I've been more concerned about how our country has treated both the media and politicians, the whole notion of what constitutes hate crimes and what helps cultivate the environment for that. And I have a question for you then, and it has a legal and it has a public connotation. When there's an organized pattern of action against a protected group, whether it's the folks at the Daily Stormfront or whatever the heck it's called, or other organizations, it seems like the media has difficulty in calling it. They call it a hate crime, but to me, it seems like it's a form of domestic terrorism. Now, we don't have a domestic terrorism criminal part of the statute. It's in the Patriot Act defined for other reasons, but we've only really called, I think, maybe Timothy McVeigh a domestic terror. But there seems to be some reluctance to use that in the context of hate crimes perpetrated against protected classes. And God. I'd like to get the opinion of Ms. Masri and certainly Ms. Clark about what you think about using that nomenclature more readily for the kinds of activities being perpetrated against protected individuals, as well as whether or not the law